ओमज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोर्श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं श्रीकृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्त काञ्चन गौरांगी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। नमो महावदान्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायिने कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामिने गौरत्विषे नमः। पंचतत्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूपस्वरूपकं भक्तावतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकम्। श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। जन्माद्यस्य यतोऽन्वयादितरतश्चार्थे सुभिज्ञस्वराट् तेने ब्रह्म हृदय आदि कवये मुह्यन्ति सूरयः। तेजो वारिमृदां यथा विनिमयो यत्र त्रिसर्गो मृषा धाम्ना स्वेन सदा निरस्तकुहकं सत्यं परं धीमहि। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, chapter 13, verse number 46. And this is the story of King Anga, who came in the dynasty of Dhruv Maharaj, grandson of Swami Mani. Anga was a very pious king, but he had no children, no issues. And therefore when he performed sacrifice, the devatas, demigods, did not appear to take oblations. So he was very disturbed by this fact, and he was told that this is because he has no children. Therefore he performed a putreshti yajna, which is to get a son, and he got one son, but the son was completely wicked, malicious, cruel and impious. And as we read that he was even killing his playmates. Wherever he could find, he will kill people. So the king tried to discipline him, but he did not listen to him. So finally King Anga, he became very dejected, because he himself, being a very pious and religious man, could not tolerate that his son was just the opposite of him. So we read how he was lamenting, and he was even saying that those people who do not have son, they must have done something pious in their past life to have such an opportunity, that they don't have to face the disturbance from an unqualified son. So he said that this is a blessing. So in the material world, people consider different things as blessings of God. If somebody is in a good material situation, they think that this is blessing. But from spiritual point of view, the blessing is if you become fixed in devotion to God, in service to God. Whether materially or comfortable or uncomfortable, it is immaterial. So, what may look like a distressful situation from material point of view may be a boon from spiritual point of view. So materially, this was a disturbance for him, but spiritually it became a boon because he left his kingdom, as we will read, and he will devote himself fully to God. So he says this in this verse 46, says Kadapatyam varam manye sadapyatyachusham padat nirvidyeta grihan martyo yat klesani vaha graha. So this is very interesting statement he makes. He says to have a wicked son is better than to have a well-behaved son. Now one will say, how is that possible, that you have a nice, well-behaved, obedient son? How is that is not a good situation? So he says that if you have impious, cruel, disobedient son, then you will become disinterested in material life and take to spiritual life. If you have a nice son, then you will remain entangled in the family life. You will not like to leave the family life and take to spirituality. So therefore he says that nirvidyeta grihan martyo. He says everybody has to die. Nobody can live eternally with their family members. We will be separated sooner or later. But if we just remain in material affairs and do not care what happens after death, then we have lost our life uselessly. So therefore he says that if someone becomes renounced, dispassionate, detached because of ill-behaved son, then this is a boon. This is a blessing of God. So why it is blessing? Because human life has a special purpose. It is not just to have a family, live comfortable. It is good, of course, if one has a devoted family. With sons, children, wife, husband, whoever, family members, if they are all devoted and you together perform devotional activity, that is best. And no one has to give up family life. But if some people are just materially attached, as is the case many times, then it is better than one becomes materially detached. So these are the two paths, path of pravritti and path of nivritti, attachment and detachment. So detachment is better if that leads to spirituality. So therefore he says Kadapatyam varam manye, that I consider a bad son better than a good son. So yat klesani vaha griha. It says, otherwise you will continue. So this is how he lamented, and then he decided to leave the house. So Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti, he comments, Nischitya cha sa nirveda mrit prapti karanam putram eva smritva bhagavata eva param kripya vishabhogandham mam svacharnantikam balat nishuna putroya mahyam dattaitya. So he is commenting that King Ang, he was thinking that I was actually totally absorbed in material life, and Lord is very merciful that he has sent this rascal son to me. So he is like waking me up. It's like a person is oversleeping, doesn't want to get up, then somebody pours little water. So he may not like it and try to cover his face with a blanket still. But he's trying to wake him up from the dream. So he says that all this material life is like a dream, and Lord has awoken me by sending this son to me. And this way he is forcibly attracting me to his feet. Balat swachanantikam ninishuna. desiring to attract me to his service, he has given me this son. So with this intention, he speaks this verse. So this is a very good way of seeing material uncomfortable situation as a blessing. We can always see every situation as something beneficial for us. Although it may be troublesome materially, and we may wish that this was not there, but it may be ultimately for our good. So this is how he is thinking. Evam sanirvinda mana nripo grihat nishita uthaya mahodayo dayat alabdha nidro nupulakshito nirbhir hitva gato vena suvam prasuptam. So when he was completely distressed like this, then one night he could not sleep, and not being seen by anyone, he walked away from the house, considering this as a great opportunity. And while his wife, the mother of Vena, was still sleeping, he just left home, not seen by anyone. So Mahodayasya Mahasampatte Rudayo Yatra Yasmat. So he considered that this is a very wonderful opportunity he has got, and therefore he decided to go. Venam sute venasu stam sunitam prasuptam iti yadayo sa prakarshena pratiti smatadev swasya yasantram pratya. So he said that when his wife was sleeping, then he changed his dress, because if he goes in a royal dress, people will recognize him. So he hid himself and then just slinked away from the palace, and he was lost. Yuchikyurvyamati shokakatara yatha nigudham purusham kuyogina Vigyaya nirvidyam gatam patim prajaha purohutamatya sudhidvinadayaha. So in the morning when people did not find him, because an understanding that he must have left the kingdom, being unhappy, then the priest, the ministers and other well-wishers of the king, they searched for him all around. And they were all very distressed, because everybody liked the king. He was a nice king, and everybody was pleased with him. So, but they could not find him. And he gives one example, Yatha Nigudham Purusham Kuyoginam. So just like those people who are not good yogis, they don't find the Supreme Being inside themselves. They search outside. But Lord is in the heart, Nigudham Purusham. So they are unable to find him. Like that they could not find him. So he left. Purusham Paramatmanam Nigudham iti drishtantena tasmin dine tatraiva svapuriyam raja nigudha eva asiviti. So he comments on this, that this example, that just as the yogis who are not very advanced, they cannot find the super soul in the heart, only he is there inside. So like that they could not find the king. And he further comments that the body is also called a city. Navdware Pure Dehi. Krishna says that this is a city of 9 gates. So he says that just as a neophyte yogi cannot find God inside this city called body, like that they also did not find the king, although he was hiding inside the city. That is the implication of this example. That day he hid inside the city only because he knew that people will go outside the city. They will not think that king will be hiding in the city. So he was clever. But they will definitely think that obviously if he is going away, then he will go far away. So they searched him outside the city. But he was just inside. So, and then next day he left from there. अलक्ष्यन्तः पदवीं प्रजापतेर् हतोद्यमा प्रत्युपसृत्य ते पुरीं ऋषीन् समेतानभिवन्द्य साश्रवो निवेदयन् पौरवभर्तृविप्लवम्. So they searched for him all outside the city, all around, but they could not find him. Therefore they returned to the city. And there the sages have assembled. So these people who had gone to search, they came to him and they reported with tears in their eyes that we could not find. And our master, he is lost, we don't know where he is. So they were very much unhappy not finding him. This is the end of chapter 13. Which explained the birth of Vena and then the activities, how Vena was causing distress to his father and he leaves. So 14th chapter, Maitre Vacha. Bhrigvadayaste muniyo lokanam chema darshinaha Goptaryashiti Vainirnam Pashyantaya Pasu Sammitam. Maitre said that the sages which were headed by Bhrigu, they saw that now because there was no king, so there was anarchy, and because of that there was disturbance in the society. People started behaving like animals. So when there is no one to rule, there is no law, then might is right, whoever is strong will exploit the weak. So this happens in the society. So they saw this, that now because the protector of the kingdom, the king is not there, so we don't see that welfare for people, how to help them. Something has to be done about it. Otherwise, everything will become disturbed and people will not be able to follow their respective duties. Chaturdasya abhishiktasya venasya dharmavartinaha praboditaha tasya uru mathanam munibhi punaha. So Sri Vishwanath, he gives the gist of this chapter in one word. He says that in this 14th chapter there is a description how King Vena, son of Anga, he was installed at the post of the king, and then when he was not behaving properly, the sages came and tried to instruct him, but he did not listen to them. So then they killed him, and then they churned his arms to produce another king from his body, within hours. So this is what is being will be described in this chapter. So Veer Matra Mahiya Sunitham Brahmavadina Prakratya Sammatam Venam Abhyasinchan Patim Bhuvaha. So when the sages, they saw that the society is without a king and the unrighteous people, they are becoming a disturbance, they called the mother of Vena, Sunitha, and with her consensus they installed Vena as the king. Although the ministers were not agreeing, Prakritiya Sammatam Venam, the ministers and the people in general, they did not want him as the king. But still the sages, they thought that since he is very cruel person, then the criminal minded people will be scared of him because he is not going to spare them, he is not kind or merciful. So everyone will be afraid of him, and therefore no one will raise his head to cause some crime in the society. So it is better that he remains as the king. But they did not see that this person, he will also disturb the people. So when one finds a solution to a problem, one should also be careful to understand that this solution may cause some other trouble. It's like we fall sick, we take medicine. So we also have to be careful that we take medicine, but we should not get another problem from the medicine. And also iatrogenic diseases. And now they have researched that 25% of the diseases are coming from the medicines only. So that's quite a lot. So you try to fix one thing and other thing is going out of balance. So that is not a very good solution. So then there is this story in Panchtantra, and there were birds living on a tree, and they gave eggs in the hollow of the tree. And there was one snake who will come and eat them. So they didn't know what to do. So what they thought is that they got this mongoose. So for that they put some fish. They got fish from the pond and they dropped fish. So tracing the fish, this mongoose came there, and there he sees the snake and he kills the snake. And then this mongoose starts eating the birds. So they were able to protect the eggs, but then he became in trouble himself. So many times people get into trouble, they take help from some mafia, but then this mafia starts exploiting. So similarly, this is the situation here, that they made Vena as the king, but then Vena himself became a problem. He solved one problem, that no criminal was able to raise any head because he will just shoot the fellow on the spot. He will not even listen, so everybody got completely scared. But then he himself became a terror. So that's why he says that Amatya Prakritiya Sammatam, that people actually did not want him because they knew that this fellow is so cruel. So Samyatamiti Swarthasya Pashyan Meshadim Yatha Srigal Vrikadiyo Nashiyanti Pathayin Dasya. So when the sages, they saw that people have become like animals, and just like jackals and wolves, they eat goats, like that the dacoits, they were looting people in general. And to solve that problem, they installed Vena as the king. Prakritiya sammatam iti parthdvayam prakriti ramatyabi swabhavasya tasam tayacha sammatam. So Prakriti here means the ministers, etc. because the nature of Vena was known to them. They knew very well that this fellow is very cruel. The sages, they did not want to be the king themselves. They could have also taken the position, but In the past, the sages were not interested in politics and all. Now in India, many sadhus also come into politics. They want to contest elections and rule. But in the past, they did not want that. So they did not consider that this was their duty to rule, but they thought of the welfare of people, and therefore they wanted that some king should be there. So this was the system in India, that although kings used to rule and kings have the supreme authority, but the sages and the brahmanas, the learned people, they will advise the king, and king was very respectful to them. And if king did not listen to them, then they could also remove him, as we will see. So this way the power was checked. Otherwise, when there is absolute power, then the person can become corrupt, and then there is no one to control and check. So now also it's very difficult that although there is democracy, but once somebody is elected for 5 years, 4 years, whatever period of time, then they have the power, and then there is not much you can do. Of course, after 5 years you throw them away, but then another one comes like that. But here the sages did not have to wait few years. So therefore the kings, they were afraid. And we read so many stories that the sages had the power even to curse the king if he did not listen. And as in this chapter we will read that the sages actually they killed the king just by chanting mantras. So because they had this power, then kings were very respectful, and they also took guidance from them. And because the sages themselves were not interested in ruling, they will give guidance without any vested interest. Now when people give guidance, they also may have their vested interest. There are people who give consultancy, or there are committees who come up with some suggestions for the government, but in between they may have their own agenda hidden. But these sages, because they were renounced and they had absolutely no interest in ruling or taking anything from kingdom, so they gave good advice, thinking only of the welfare of the people. So this is what we see here. Srutva nripasan gatam venam matiugra sasanam nililyurdasya sadya sarpatrasta iva khavaha. So when the thieves, dacoits, rogues, they heard that Vena has become the king, and they knew that Vena is very cruel in ruling and chastising, then they all hid. Just like when the snake comes, then the rats run away. Sarpatrasta ivaka. So this was a good thing, that as soon as they heard that Vena is ruling, then they stopped their criminal activities. So it happens that whenever there is change in government and whoever becomes the chief minister of the state, then people are always speculating what kind of a ruler he is or she is. When they know that the person is not so strict, then they continue with their criminal activities, exploiting people. They know that the person is strict, then they try to find a connection with him, bribe him, and continue. So in this particular case, there was no such thing to bribe him, because he is the absolute ruler. And they knew that he is very hard and harsh in punishing. So everybody ran away. Everybody was hiding, like rats in the presence of snake. Sarudha nirpasthanunnadhvashtavibhutivi avnire mahabhagan stabdha sambhavita swataha. But now the problem is that when he sat on the post of the king, then he became highly proud. And he thought that now nobody is like me, I'm supreme. So avnene mahabhagan stabdha sambhavita swataha. So when a king is installed, then there is a sacrifice which is performed, and then there is abhishek done for the king. He is given a ceremonial bath, and this water is the water from the sacrifice where mantras are chanted, and this has power in it. So this power is transferred into the king. So now he felt very strong and powerful and became highly proud and thought that now I am most honorable person, I have all the power and there is nobody like me. And as Krishna says that among the human beings I am the king. So king is supposed to be a representative of God, Vishnu, because Vishnu is called Palaka or protector or maintainer, and king's job is also to maintain the society. So he is considered as a representative of Lord Vishnu. But here the king Vena, he started now thinking that he is Vishnu himself and there is nobody like him. So this is a very interesting instance and also instruction we get from the story of Venu, because there are many statements in the scriptures like worship the Guru like God, or king is to be worshipped like God, or parents are to be worshipped like God. So sometimes people take this to the extreme, that Guru is himself God and there is no God besides him. Or king himself is God as he will declare, and there is no God beyond. So this is a flaw in understanding the statement. He is treated like God, not that he is God. So it's not that Guru is God. So sakshat haritvena samasta sastri uktas tatha bhavete eva sabdi kintu prabhoreva eva dasa. So Guru is said to be sakshat hari, directly Lord Hari. Sakshat means direct. Sakshat haritvena samasta sastri. All scriptures say that Guru is Lord. Krishna also says acharya mam vijaniyat naamanyet karhichit namarta buddhyasuyat sarvadevamaya Guru. That know that I am the acharya and don't disrespect him. And he is the embodiment, acharya is the embodiment of all the devas. So king is also supposed to be the same. He is Vishnu and representative of all devas. But does it mean now that we give up the worship of Vishnu or Hari? So Vishnu Chakravarti in his Guru Astakam says that no. Kintu prabhoreva priya dasa. That he is actually the servant of God. And because he is very dear to God, Guru is very dear to God, so he is treated like him. And because he is doing the function of God, because God means who gives knowledge. God is the person who comes to give us transcendental knowledge, otherwise we will never know anything about him. And Guru is supposed to give us the transcendental knowledge. Updekshanti te jnanam jnananes tattva darshanam, giving instruction, jnana. So etavadeva jigyasam jigyasuna, and this is only to be known from the Guru. So Guru means who gives spiritual knowledge. He is a spiritual teacher, as God is a spiritual teacher. So it is for this reason that he is respected, and king is respected because another function of Vishnu is that he is a palaka, he is a maintainer. Vishnu Shakti is palani. So he keeps the order in the society, and for that reason he is representative and treated and respected. But if we consider themselves as God, then that is a problem. So similarly we read in the scriptures that Shiva is God, Ganesh is God, Durga is Goddess. About all this you will see statements. But it does not mean that they are God and then there is no one beyond that. So we have to understand that there is only one God. Vadanti tattvavedas tattvam vijnanamadhyam brahmeti karmatmati bhagavaniti samyati. There is only one Bhagavan. And then there are manifestations of that one Bhagavan. So these others may be respected, treated, worshipped, but not independently. Yeti anna devata bhakta yajante swadhyamvita tepi mameva konte yajanti avidipurvikam. So that those who are worshipping other devatas, they are also worshipping me only, but improperly. Because these other devatas are also manifestation of Bhagavan only. But worship of Bhagavan is not to be given up. Worship is only for him, and others are to be respected and not insulted or mistreated. So, but to declare that there is no other God but the king, or there is no other God but the Guru, there is no other God but Shiva only, or Goddess only, and that is improper understanding, and that's what we learn from this story. Because this king, he will give very nice arguments, and the sages will come to tell him. He will actually give very nice argument how he should be, why he should be treated like God. And these are the arguments you will actually find in the scriptures. So sometimes we have to understand the statements of the scriptures in proper light, because all statements do not carry the same weight. Some are more powerful than the others, and they override other statements. So that is very important to understand. Evam madandha utsikto nirankusaiva dvipaha Paryatan Rathamasthaya Kampayan Nivarodasi. So he says that he gave up all good behavior, achara, and became intoxicated by power. There are various types of intoxicants. People follow in spiritual life that you have to follow 4 rules. No intoxication is one of them. But intoxication is not just drinking liquor. You also get intoxicated by power, by wealth, by beauty, by knowledge. There's so many things. These are all intoxicating. So they also have to be given up. Means you should not get intoxicated by them. If you are getting intoxicated by them, then you are not following the principle of no intoxication. So he became madandha. He became completely blinded by the power. So just as one person is intoxicated, then he is like blind because he cannot discriminate what is right, what is wrong. Why intoxicants are prohibited? Because they destroy our discriminatory faculty. We are unable to make distinction what we should do and what we should not do, what we should speak, what we should not speak. So then we become like animals, because animals don't have such discrimination. What is the difference between animal and human being? So, but if we, without even drinking liquor, if we are intoxicated, then we are in the same or even worse situation. Because this liquor intoxicant goes down after a few hours. And this intoxicant, we are ever high, never come down. So therefore, evam madanda utsikto nirankusa. Now he said he was like an elephant without ankush. When the elephant in India, they have this domesticated elephants and they have the mahout. And the mahout has this small god in his hand. So that is to control the elephant. But if he does not have it, then how to control the elephant? So he says now he was an elephant without any control. Nirankusha ivadvipa. Because there is no one to control him. Previously at least his father was there. And he was not the king, so his father could do anything to him. Even put him in prison. So he was like that. Paryatan ratham asthaya kampyani varodsi. So he will ride in his chariot and wander around on the face of earth, scaring everyone. Like sometimes when people are intoxicated, they get into a car and then they drive crazily on the highway, right? Honking, speeding around. So he was also doing that. And this is one way of showing that you are the Lord and Master. Speed, power, and no one to control. Nayastavyam na datavyam na hotavyam dvijaha kvachit iti nevarad dharmam dheri ghoshen sarvashaha. So he made announcements. Like now in India, now in Vrindavan, if you want to make some announcement, then you call a three-wheeler and you hire one man and he sits with this loudspeaker, battery operated, and he goes around from street to street announcing. Right? So in the olden days also in India they had a system. They did not have loudspeaker, but they used to have this big drum. So they will go inside a village, in the center of the village, and they will play on the drum. So when they play on the drum, then everybody comes there. Because in India, this is the interesting characteristic that you go there and you start playing drum, 50 people will come. In the West, you do that, hardly anyone will notice you.
Police will come.
Yeah, police will come. But here, you stand on the road and you start playing the drum, immediately there is a crowd and it will keep on growing. So this was a custom that kings want to make an announcement. There were people specifically, Halkara they were called, this was their job. So they will go to a village and they will go and play the drum and everybody comes there and then they make an announcement. So this is how the news used to spread. And when some things have to be told quickly, then every village had a tree. Then these people who were in charge, they will go on top of the tree and shout from there to the other village. And the people in charge, who were in charge of informing, they will come and also come onto the tree. Then this guy will speak from the tree to the tree. And that's why, this distance course, you might have heard.
Course.
Yeah, course is like 2 miles. It's called one course. Like Govardhan Parikrama, this is 7 course. 7 course. The word actually is krosha. Krosha means to shout. So these people could shout 2 kroshas. They could be heard. They were trained. That's how the distance krosha came. So he says that Bheri Ghoshana Sarvasa, that king, he made announcement through this drum all around, and he said that Nayastavyam, he said that nobody should perform a sacrifice. And Na Datavyam, no charities to anybody. And no Hotavyam, and no this Agnihotra, morning, evening, sacrifice is done. He says, no one, everybody has to stop, Nivarak Dharma, all this nonsense has to completely stop now. He says, enough. And Venasya Aveksha Muniyo Durvrittasya Vicheshtitam Vimrishya Lokavasnam Kripya Uchusna Satrinaha. So this is how he made announcement. Ashtabhibhuti Ashtadigvartanibhi Sampatti Bhiriti Saptadipadipatyam Dhvanitam Stabda Garvavan Svatasveneva Sambhavita Shuroham Panditahamati Kritatma Kathana. So just explains that how nobody was telling him anything that you are great or you are powerful, but he himself was imagining this. There was no need for anyone actually to tell him. It was enough for him that he got this post. He himself was going around, because those people who are looking for power, when they get it, then they cannot sit quietly. They have to go around and show that they have the power. So this is what he did. But now the problem came that he stopped all the sacrifices. They said that there is no God other than me. He said, I am the God, I am the king, I have all the powers. You saw that all the sages, they came and bowed down to me. The sages also go and pay respect when he is installed as the king. And I am the master, I am the ruler. I supply everything. So, where is God? Nobody has seen him. So don't bother about anything. Don't waste all your rice, sesame seed and ghee and burn it in fire. Just give everything to me. If you have to chant any mantra or do sacrifice, then Venaya Swaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Venaya Swaha. That all those sacrifices, oblations, offerings, they should all be done to Vena. He says, because I am the one who is giving all the energy. All the sun and moon, they are working because of my power. So I am the God who is manifest. This other God you talk about, nobody sees him. So believe in what is present in front of your eyes. So he was preaching like this. And said, if you want to give any charity, give it to me. You want to chant any mantra, chant my mantra. You want to do some yajna, do it for me, and I will bless you. This other God, where is he? Nobody has seen him. So he convinced, or he was trying to convince people like this. So when the sages, they heard it, they were very much distressed, because they did not expect that this person will go up to this extent. So they had a meeting, and this shows, it also throws some light on the history that how originally in India the system was to check and balance the power. So when they saw this behavior of Vena, Durvrittasya Vicheshtitam, his improper behavior, irreligious and misleading people, then they called for a meeting. So that means people were still allowed to meet, not that he had restricted or he had the power on them. So Vimrishya Loka Vyasnam Kripya Uchus Satyana. So they saw that people, they were not able to follow their respective duties. And thus they had an assembly and decide what is to be done in this situation. अहो उभयतः प्राप्तं लोकस्य वसनं महात् दारुणी उभयतो दीप्त इव तस्करपालयोः. So they said, alas, it is a very troublesome situation because people have got problems from both sides. It says on one side there is the king and on other side there are the dacoits and thieves. So when king was not there, then there was problem from the dacoits and thieves and rogues. And when the king is there, then the other problem is stopped. Now this one has started. So he said it's just like a wood burning on both hands, and there is an ant in the center. So ant is walking to the left and he sees that there is a fire. So it turns and starts walking to the other end and sees there is a fire there also. So it's caught in between the two fires. So it says Daruni Ubhyato Deepta. So it's like a wood burning on both hands. So what is the solution for this? Multascha Agritascha Deepte Prajwalita Kaste तन्मध्यवर्तिनां पिपलिकादीनां यथा उभयतो व्यसनमेव लोकस्य दुर्गादौ पलायने तस्करात् राष्ट्रे स्थितौ पालकात् राजतो भयम्. So he says that just like wood burning on both sides and this ant has no solution, so in the same way people, if they stay in the fort, then the king is a terror. If they leave the fort, then the thieves. Means if they remain under the protection of the king, then he is exploiting them. If they give up the protection of the king, then they have no protection and then there are thieves and dacoits. So this is a very problematic situation. And what can be done about this? अराजक भयादेशः कृतो राजा तदर्हणः ततोपि आसीत् भयं त्वदद्य कथं स्यात् स्वस्ति देहिनाम्. So he says that we had actually installed him as a king because of the fear of anarchy, although we knew that he was not qualified for it. But now he himself has become the cause of fear for people. So how can we bring peace to the people? How can we bring peace in the society so that they are not troubled? This is what they are thinking. Atad arhana rajyanaha. So it says that Vena was actually not qualified to be the king. Dehinam anyasham ka katha asmabhirevayam abhishikta. And he says that what to speak of others, we ourselves have chosen him to be the king. Actually people did not want him. Samprati ayam asmaneva nayastavya mityagya shasti. And now he is actually ordering even us that don't do sacrifice, because the sages they are always doing sacrifice. So he said he has become our boss and forbidding us from doing the sacrifice. So aheriva paya posha poskasyapi anartha bhrit vene prakritya eva khala sunitha garva sangha. So he said that just like a snake, you feed the snake with milk. So there is a belief that if you feed snake with milk, it increases its poison. So he says paya posha. So paya posha bhajanganam kevalam vishvardhanam. feeding milk to a snake only increases its poison. So that's what has happened, and it has become a cause of fear for everyone. See, this Veda, by his very nature, he is a rogue. And the reason for that is because he is son of Sunitha. So as we read, Sunitha was the daughter of death. And therefore, death means who kills everyone. So he also got the qualities of his maternal grandfather. He was not hesitant to kill and terrorize anyone. So the sages therefore are having a meeting and deciding what to do. So in upcoming verses they will take a decision that we should first go and try to put some sense into the head of the king. So read that tomorrow.
Seems like that the sages, they didn't have themselves some righteousness because they could not see how far they were killing harm others. Although they, as a child he was already killing and he was already
Yeah, they thought that he will probably not do that to the people. Any other question?
What does it mean, like churning, and that Prito comes out of that? What is it like? Because it doesn't really like
Yes,
hands up, you know?
Like now they're doing cloning. You know cloning?
Yeah.
So like that they're producing, taking his DNA. Producing because he's coming in the dynasty of the Manu. So they will take the DNA and produce one king without the bad character.
With mantras, with their mantras.
So this idea that the sage can bless somebody to get a child using these mantras is almost the same thing, or
Same thing means? No, that is by mantra.
by mantra? By mantra also
That is
can.
different. He was born from Sunitha, he was not born in the year. That is changing the karma.
Because somehow they give us a mantra and a fruit or the seeds, and they become powerful and charged with this potency.
That is modifying karma.
Like the king, the Vena had all the power to be a king when he was.
And that is power of mantra. It's like you do Reiki. So what do you do in Reiki?
You get the hidden potency that has to do with us.
I understand what you were saying about him seeing that it was Marjanga, that it was a blessing his son, so he left. And sometimes we've seen that people might use that as an excuse, that my daughter or my son are not good, and they may leave that situation and not create, and at that time create a bad situation at home. Certainly the child's not killing his playmates, but there may be financial problems or some other worries. Is that...
Well, the important point is here not leaving the responsibility, but becoming detached. The point was not that he left the kingdom. That is to show when you want to show something, it is shown in such a way that you can see it. It's like dramatizing. So if we have to show that things are detached, how will you know? Right? So it was shown that he was detached, so he left. Now if he left, obviously he must be detached. So the idea here is to show the detachment, not the leaving part. So that's why he was saying that because the word he is using is that Kadapatyam Varam Mande, that I consider that son as blessing because it brings detachment. And to show that detachment, it is depicted that he left home. So, and detachment does not mean that you become detached from the children and family and then you go to the bar. Because that can also happen. So not that type of detachment. Means detached to the material environment and become devoted to God. That's what is being shown in it. That if that happens, then it is a blessing. And if you become detached with your children and go to bar, then that is not a blessing. Then that is like an ant in the center of a wood burning on both ends. So it's not saying that you give up your responsibility. Because the problem is not whether you live with children or you don't live with children. The problem is whether you are attached or not attached. The problem is of attachment. There are people who don't have kingdom. Everybody is not a king. He was a king, he gave up. I'm not a king. So it does not mean that I am also like him, great devotee. There are so many people who are beggars, not even a house, they sleep on the road. That does not mean that they are great devotees. Because if they have a small pot, they are attached to that. So the question is of attachment.
Yukta Vairagya.
Yukta Vairagya, not Yukti Vairagya. There is also Yukti Vairagya. You know that?
What is that?
You know what is Yukta Vairagya?
Maybe. My understanding is that you, for yourself, you're detached. Like, this is not my child. I don't own this child. This child is not for me, but for Krishna.
Yeah, Yukta means that you use everything for God. Everything belongs to God. That is the Vairagya. And Yukta means that it is for Him. So if I have house, wife, children, money, wealth, then instead of giving it up and walking away, I use it, considering it as God's property. That is Yukta Vairagya. There is another term called Yukti Vairagya. Yukti Vairagya means that you make a show of Vairagya. You use Yukti. Yukti means logic.
It's a very troublesome situation when there's no strong leader in society. You know? It's like we're experiencing in India today, or not only India, but
Especially in India.
The government is corrupt, the thieves and the rogues just have free reign.
No, it's corruption everywhere. Just like if you don't have a strong head, the whole body becomes dysfunctional.
It's interesting to see the sages, they're concerned about the welfare of their citizens,
Right.
and that we don't see in modern governments.
They're thinking of their welfare. And while doing welfare to themselves, if some welfare happens to people, they are fortunate. If not, tough luck.